What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist?
Just be better every damn day of their lives. And our Thursday night show brought to you by Firekeepers Casino and the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. Download the app today. Play the games we're playing this weekend. Some great, if you can't enjoy Michigan State, if you can't enjoy the Lions, we combined. And, I tried to do the thing where it's not all awful all the time for you. So that was my
I appreciate it.
My goal for the night. And it also makes it a better show.
Yes.
Where
it's not about me. Listen, don't worry about me. I
Right.
can handle it. It's just when we get into the repetitive, into the detail stuff that are like a paragraph long. But anyway.
Yeah, no.
Stop complaining, I guess.
I'm with you. No, look, there's a daily blazing boost and just a very user-friendly experience. And also, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, a great place just to go, to Firekeepers, to Dacey's Tap House and Sportsbook down in Battle Creek, just off I-94. Just a sweet experience. We've done it. If you've never done the Sportsbook in-house, it is a great time. And their setup there, it is absolutely.
Two games jumped out at me. I think Clemson could win that game by 1 point, 2 points, but give me the 3 in the hook and Georgia -8. Everybody jumping on Tennessee, and when the public loves a bet, I got to go the other way on this one. Plus 264, that two-leg parlay plays.
I love that. I love that. You hit one of these recently too, right? Am I right?
County.
It's look, Darby County is a team that was in the championship division just below the Premier League last year, got relegated mostly because they had done some shit that cost them points. Like the league stripped them of wins, essentially, stripped them of points. They get relegated down to League One. Still, they're way ahead, 300, depending on where you get it. They're at West Ham plus 310. I like that a lot, and like that probably more than a parlay. I like Newcastle a little bit. There are a bunch of games I like. Don't love anything for sure, but Crystal Palace plus 310 on the money line at West Ham is my play I am playing this weekend. Week is going to be really telling of this team's leadership, of the depth of talent within the program. And we know they don't have great depth of talent, but I find it really hard to believe that Illinois, even with the season they're having, even as good as they look, pound for pound, is that overwhelming to what MSU has. And even with the suspended, we were all fucking dumbasses for thinking that could be a Michigan State win. Like, that's a lot to lose in one game.
We're dropping MFers now?
And yet, that team in the second half at least was fighting to get back in it, right? Is there going to be fight to the finish from this team, or are they going to have one of those games where the wheels come off and it winds up being 42-7, and it just feels like the bare minimum for a season that's going bad for a coaching staff? If a coaching staff still has guys playing hard every week, I think almost everything can be fixed over time in a program. Like, you may have to change some staff members. You may have to do some other things. But guys are responding to you still. And guys want to be playing. And I think they'll be that. But is that other teams seem to make the adjustments better than Michigan State does in the second half. Whatever Michigan State's finding gets taken away. And the argument could be that Michigan State has less to work with. And so when other teams see, okay, this is what they're able to do, we can adjust to this. But I think a lot of that's on film anyway. And it's a great question on why they have been unable. Whatever you thought of him, he would try to explain things to you. And I think there's great value in that. And I wish, they make an assistant coach available most weeks. It just rotates through. We're definitely due Jay Johnson.
I mean, would he have an explanation for a shotgun on 4th and short?
Right. Well, those things.
Explain it to me like I'm 5. That's all I ask.
Totally.
And if he explains it, or if he goes, you know what, that was.
As soon as I sent that tweet, I was like, why do you do that? You're not the guy to follow during the game for action. The other thing that happens, no matter how long you've been doing this, and this is like 20 plus years for me that I've been covering, football season and then basketball season. When you start covering hoops, no matter how long you've been doing it, it's too fast. When you go from football to hoops. In football, they take a break. Middle, it's easy. Now, basketball, it takes a minute, and usually I do it during the media timeouts. But yeah, and then with the quick takes, you're trying in the second half, it's a disaster. But I apologize for that. I should never have misled.
I thought you were great, only tweeting twice. That was perfect. Dominic next. Why can't we denounce the actions and support the punishments while simultaneously acknowledging?
Like, I'm not a huge Harbaugh fan. Do I think he is helped this situation? I do not, and I wrote that in a column today. But I also think when you start, like if you do what, like Jim Comparoni wrote a column basically blaming Harbaugh, you take the actions, and he wrote in that column that it didn't absolve the players from what they did, but it really is, it doesn't, definitely.
Last one from Dominic Graham. Do you know that Melissa, your stylist, you have a stylist?
I do.
Your stylist is both fantastic and refers to you as her mini celebrity.
I feel bad for Melissa. I need to get her
Mini celebrity.
Better clients. Imagine
Provenzano.
Imagine trying to make me look good. Like I walk in, she's like, mother, this is good.
Is Graham saying if he had been there, the fight would have been shut down by his presence? Cameras, witnesses, and teammates can't stop it, but one additional reporter can. Graham, what other infamous moments in history could you have prevented other than 9/11?
Yeah, probably both Iraq wars for sure. It's any time there was a mix-up or
Remember when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear off? I mean, there was the anniversary of that, I think, this year, and they have a picture of Tyson, like there was 4 cops in the ring, and you could just see their faces like, I can't believe I'm in the ring with a crazed Mike Tyson with an ear hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah, and like,
I mean, what would you do there? I think I would just bail. I don't care what you say about me. I'm out of there.
Yeah, well, Tyson's a little
To the locker room immediately to see his trucker dad. How much time did he save by not waiting? 2.5 minutes? And from Bo McJunkins. Gary Crump could be punished fully, but do you know anyone who swings a helmet at a person innocently walking by to see their parents in the tunnel or innocently going to get treatment? Hoping an on-the-record investigation sheds more light.
Process of this. Everything that's not being done on video is being done by police. The interrogations or whatever, figuring out what actually happened that's not captured on video. And keep in mind, the schools in the Big Ten have what we've seen. To my knowledge, that is it they have to this point. So I am curious to see what's revealed because, again, I with them, and that really is precious time. I get that. There are times we haven't been able to talk to players on the road because of that. In fact, I wanted to do a column on Elijah Collins at Maryland when he had that first kind of game where he sort of reemerged, and he did a quick radio interview, but they didn't bring him up because his family was down there and he was talking with them, and it.
But that punch was what, like 30 years ago?
Totally, and
I mean,
yeah, and look, it again. There are lots of people who shouldn't. Most sports writers shouldn't be telling people how to dunk a basketball because we can't get our asses up there. But you know what I mean? Like it. I don't know if that's the same scenario. It's probably cut that in post. That was a bad.
I'll leave it
analogy. Play itself out before.
But by saying an apology wouldn't be adequate in this situation, really? Did he think Mel Tucker wasn't going to apologize, or the university wasn't for the players' actions? He was going to come out and say, "I stand behind my guys." No, that's why it just sounded douchey to me. Next one from Bo. Why is Michigan never held accountable for their end of anything?
You and your
I was trying to urinate.
Yeah, that's one of the great, and that's when you know you found somebody good.
Her or me?
That you found somebody good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, she must have been second guessing everything about her life in that moment.
Oh, don't blame her.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, that was what, first date, second date?
God, I think that was second.
Or Wolverine or whatever, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff. But I'm not gonna defend your or criticize you for your perception of him. You probably read him more than I do, for sure.
Speaking of no one reading, you went on the Los's podcast. That was a favor for your buddy there.
Windsor?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
right?
when they reach out.
Does, maybe. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying he has to be a bad person outside of his position, but I mean, I just can't imagine that's how you want to have your career go.
Well,
it's wild.
You could get a Carlos Monterrez groovy donut if you wanted to. They would do that for you.
Is it just a balled up brown donut? Looks like a turd.
Okay.
Matt C. next. Since Peyton Thorne admitted that the fourth
play that he thought they had coverage that they really liked, somebody who wasn't usually in coverage on a receiver over Jaden Reed one-on-one, and he should have checked out of what they had, and he didn't because he figured, well, if we don't get it here, we'll have 2 more downs. You can't think that way. They had a great matchup with Jaden Reed. That was the moment to do it on second down. He's not talking about fourth down. I don't think worst quarterbacks in the last
But if
decade.
they lose against Illinois, is it time to just try someone else? Your season's over.
Well, hold
Or
on.
do you-
We got more Twitter questions coming up. We'll get into that in a little bit. A little
Matt
tease.
C. Would MSU be better under Brett Bielema since we have low-level high school football coaching now?
I mean, I think Bielema is a very good coach, and I think the one thing Bielema always has is good offense. So Bielema may have the same situation that MSU has, where it's just that year 3 or that, all of a sudden the transition really hits you. I do think his track record says he puts together really good offensive lines, and Michigan State could certainly use that.
Next one from Matt C. If you had to go into the portal for an additional show host, who would you recruit?
This, of course, is our how he's playing is an awesome burger. I loved it with the egg. Jason went without the egg on it. Lots of TVs to watch the game and watch pints with friends. It's a great atmosphere. And you can go to hopcat.com to find the Hopcat nearest you. So if we had to find an additional show host or a replacement show host, co-host. All right, let's say it's the two of us. I think the chemistry would actually work pretty well. Would people still want to hear us is the question if they just had Barkley?
Yeah.
Might be
That's
too
why you
good.
really don't want to add anyone.
Yeah.
Because then they're like, damn, that guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's why we keep it to just us and,
Nobody realizes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good. I like the Barkley. I'm trying to think if there's somebody that I would certainly.
Graham, have you considered ending your questions to Tucker and the staff with a subtle caw? Caw.
Wouldn't that be just?
What if you, like, before your question, you were like Tourette's or something?
Maybe I just do everything in a Yoda voice. Tucker, Mel. Bill B.
U.S. politics in 2016.
This is a really good question too, worthy of the Hopcat question, Cosmic Fries question of the day. Because I do think it is truly unhealthy, and I think there are some variables that have gone into that. One is the increased use in social media. And so it feels like social media is a bigger part of our lives. Some of it is Michigan State's. I think next year, I'm going to be fascinated to see it next year because I think there will be, there are going to be moments where people get, really, really wound up. And there are going to be people you sort of have to ignore and take with a grain of salt. That's just, it's.
I think that the rivalry's been that way before between fans.
You think it's been this bad?
Not as bad as it is currently now, but it's not far from it.
Outside of this sphere, say that they sort of took a peek at the Michigan State media world, or not media world, Twitter world in the last few days and never want anything ever again to do with it.
Yeah, I can't blame them.
Yeah.
Mojo Jojo. Why is Harbaugh so keen to play victim? Also, root for governor. Appreciate
again.
Well, stop doing that.
Yeah, he's not. He's never going to be a really overly. He's not good at certain things, and this is one of them, right? He's not good at the right tone and tenor in this situation. It's not his strength. And the problem is it takes away from, like, if he had played this perfectly, like, I think Michigan State's played this pretty well since the actual tunnel. Like, oh, my God, and these guys need to, go to jail for life. It would have just, there was a tone to strike that, but he doesn't have that in him. That's never been his strength. He's never had that charisma or that understanding of the moment and how to play it. And that's just not his strength. That's not what he's paid to do, and he's not good at it. He's got to. Everybody has to agree what the Michigan State players did was egregious. And then logistically, I think every AD in the country has to look at and say, when players have been wound up for 3.5 hours and there's a chance for something like this ever to happen, how do we make
that happened the week prior?
How do we?
against
Well,
Penn
not
State?
to this degree, but
2
it
weeks
could.
ago.
Right? How do we make sure this can't happen? Not that it should, but how do we walk and chew gum, sort of thing?
Rich Searing next. How many new coaches will we see on the MSU football staff next year? How many portal guys will Tucker bring in for the fall?
What do you want to set the? I'll say over under 3.5. Nah, 2.5 new coaches. I think that's the right number.
I think it's perfect. Next one from Rich. Will Michigan ever take any responsibility for the tunnel issues?
What I'll be very interested to see where the investigation leads. The final, sort of whatever comes out from the Big Ten eventually, once the police investigation's been done. I think they'll be forced to, because I think there will be a fine for Michigan, number one. And I think, right? And so Michigan State took the attitude of, with a couple guys. I think like, well, you clearly weren't helping, and you were right there, so you're suspended right now. So there's that, and then there's guys who like Crump is clearly, they're guys who are clearly swinging the helmet. They're guys who are clearly involved in certain activities or actions, and it's easier. I think I would be
2023 season. Can we expect a season similar to this one, or worse than the season, or drastically better?
So I think if you're Michigan State, you have to do everything to make sure it's not worse. There are some similar, like I don't think from a talent perspective you're going to be any better. I think it'll be helped that expectations will be lower. It's really hard to tell because I don't know if they're going to be able to hold up at the center position against good opponents. Like one of the things I think we find out very early on is because those are the sort of teams, Gonzaga, Kentucky, that you see again deep in the NCAA tournament. Like if MSU can hold up against them and they got the guard play, even if they're not perfect because Jaden Akins is working, I think it's not going to work. And if you think it's not going to work, you got to do it. You don't want to do, and you've got enough cachet that you can do it here and there when it's the right play.
Does he? You think so?
To an extent. He can't do, was it Tyler O'Connor years ago? Poor Tyler O'Connor. You remember when they were in that battle and it was like O'Connor, Connor Cook, and Andrew Maxwell, everybody fighting for the job of pretty much one accord, and they trust each other largely, and that's why.
I think if Thorne does that, Jay Johnson should just pack his stuff and leave. Right? I mean, come on, you can't go over a coach's
Well, you
head
can't do
like
that. Oh, they'll pull Thorne. You don't do that, right? Yeah.
Jeff Oswald next. Can you recall a Power 5 coach dumping his offensive and defensive coordinators during the same offseason?
Yes, right. And there's some argument to think that there's been some really important improvement there. Let's see what they do shorthanded. Let's see what Scotty Hazelton's able to do. Can, in this last month against two pretty tough opponents and then two opponents they ought to have a real chance to beat, can that offense finally you're seeing a little bit Terry Lockett today, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many players, like, if that's just an incident and it's not a cultural thing, then I don't know how that would have any effect. Now, if it's one of those 8 guys, it's one of the reasons you're doing this.
No one cares about me, so I'm not going to get canceled. And first of all, Scott Bell doesn't know who I am. He thought it was you, and that's why you were frantically tweeting until your thumb fell off, distancing yourself from me. So, I mean, no. I can't. No, I don't think I could be canceled because I think I've admitted everything on the show. So,
yeah. I mean, I would be interesting to see.
You can in the face first, Scott Bell or Skip Bayless. I think Scott Bell believes what he says.
Yeah.
Skip Bayless doesn't, and he makes a crazy amount of money for no one watching that show that he's on. I mean, I love Shannon Sharp, but Skip Bayless, you can't look at him and not hate him. So it's definitely an elbow to Skip.
Yeah. You have to understand that you're part of the problem.
Leave it to Graham to solve it.
Well, you just know what I mean. What I mean is you have to understand if the reason you discover something that outrages you is Scott Bell, you're part of the problem. Mm-hmm. Like, understand that. You can't let we got to get to that point where we understand that. Same on the Michigan State side. If somebody is a real if I think this lineup with Akins, while it doesn't have great depth, has pretty good flexibility and versatility like that. So I don't think depth hurts if you're healthy because, the reason they're able to survive Jaden Akins a little bit is Tyson Walker is a guy who will eventually play the one a fair bit, but is right now playing exclusively off the ball. And you have that ability to do it. That offensively is tough for people to guard. But the real question is when you get deep into a tournament and you have to face legitimate bigs, do they have that?
Ryan, with this one, who's the bigger impact this year for MSU basketball, Sissoko or Jackson Kohler?
So I think it'll feel like Jackson Kohler, but it'll be.
Ryan, with this one, out of the 3 guards, who's the leading scorer of the 3, and who's second and third between Walker, Hogard, and Akins?
I'm going to go leading scorer winds up being. Oh, this is tough.
Walker?
I want to say Walker, but I think give me Hogard. for this Hogard. By the way, if you are enjoying the MSU Hoops conversation, if you're looking for an MSU Hoops-centric podcast, the Final Four is not on the schedule. Really good choice. A dedicated Michigan State basketball podcast strives to provide detailed pregame analytics, postgame analysis, recruiting news, and notable interviews aimed at the casual and serious Spartan Hoops fan. If you just do this, the Final Four is not on the schedule.com or Michigan State Basketball Podcast.com. Right now they have a contest to predict the final standings of the Big Ten, and the winner receives a T-shirt, the opportunity to appear on the show. And so subscribe. The Final Four.
On their show, not ours.
Correct. We would never send you anything. The Final Four is not on the schedule, is the podcast, because he's got a lot of talent. He's got a little of what both other guys have, and he's bigger than either one of them. Like, he's a true five. Like, I believe that's a hell of a recruit, because maybe not this year, but the center position problems down the road, in large part, you're going to have that guy. And he's going to be a pretty solid big man in the Big Ten at minimum.
The teams.
So I think this is the other side of it, right? Like you and Jordan Mack.
Yeah.
Good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk to each other all the time right after the game.
No, we do.
But you guys are cordial.
I'm not a diehard Michigan State fan. I didn't go there or anything like that. And, so we don't really get into the back and forth stuff because I'm too old now.
Mom hated, and I took out. She never, like, she was almost demanding it. Like she was my editor. Like, I don't like this line. I was like, well, it's already up. No, I know, I really don't like this line. I was like, yeah, it's.
What was it?
It's up. It was something about how it brings out, this rivalry brings out the worst in people and the worst people. She did not like me saying the worst people.
All right.
And so,
when addressing the tunnel incident, if a tunnel beatings had happened between MSU and a non-rival like Iowa, do you think state fans would just call for suspensions, or would anyone make excuses?
Yeah, and if it had happened against Iowa, I don't know. It would. So say Iowa had done it to Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
About their perception of Iowa. And everybody was like, they seem nice. I like them. Like, nobody could bring themselves to hate Iowa. Like, it just seemed like who hates
Apparently
Iowa?
They don't gamble.
What? Well, yeah, if you're betting the over on Iowa, now you freaking hate Iowa. But yeah,
or
I don't.
Any situation gambling wise with Iowa, point spread, over, under, money line.
Let's burn down this other program. I don't know. It's a fair question. To the previous question too about Iowa or another school, I think it would be so shocking if it happened. It would really feel like just an isolated incident. Like, what you guys were fighting in the tunnel? Like, what's that about? Like, and I guess if it was a really intense game where there was some heated stuff and something spilled over,
we were about to fight, but then all of a sudden this sport
to get into a rhythm. Like, he really hasn't played basketball at all until today. Like, he may start Monday, which would help if he gets a game under his belt. And all these games are going to be against tough competition. He's the type of guy that all of a sudden they could get to December and he could have games where you start seeing him scoring in the teens pretty regularly, which is what they kind of need from him. They need him to be a
wreck of a program, and he enters the portal. He's our only all Big Ten caliber player.
I don't think he's the only one, but in terms of guys who are going to be around for a while, Jacob Slade was all Big Ten last year, and certainly we've seen the best of Jaden Reed. The other thing that's going to help, first of all, I don't think Keon Coleman would do that. Because he's at a position where he knows he plays, because I was around last year. They don't have great depth. I can carve out a role for myself. I guarantee you that is happening. By the way, if you're a fan of Keon Coleman or any Michigan State player, you could do a Keon Coleman Groovy Donut if you wanted to. You go to groovydonuts.com and you could have his jersey. They'll make his face. They'll do whatever you want. Keon Coleman dunk. I don't mean to make it hard. Whatever you want, go to groovydonuts.com or swing by either location, one on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston, and they're open 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thursday through Sunday.
Professor next. Over under, how many players leave MSU football team at the end of the year? Kicked off, transfers, etc. Another 2019-like exodus.
To see if he takes a different approach. He had a very much a compete to stay, compete to play, whatever, and D'Antonio had a very different approach. But does he want to try to develop some of these guys, and they need these offensive linemen? I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they sort of treat the roster and construction after this season.
Professor next.
Question. Like, Steven Izzo is going to be in the final 30 seconds of games.
And if Sissoko shoots one where the shot clock isn't at 0, then he's going to be benched for 14 games straight or something.
But if he's playing more than 20 minutes a game, he's going to be in there more often where something like that could happen. Now, what the hell he's doing outside the three-point line would be another question. I would take Steven Izzo on this just because I think, like you could tell last night, the students in there, Washington, they used that sort of strength that he came back to the ball. And I also think the fade route is so much about timing, and it was very clear early on this season that Keon Coleman and Peyton Thorne weren't on the same page the way that somebody like Jaden Reed is, who can go up and get it. So I don't know that it's, but certainly that's something that should be added to his repertoire.
Anthony Armour next.
The Lions question to you, sorry.
If they don't like any of the quarterbacks this year, they're going to get a top 3 pick, right? They would have to not really like either Bryce Young. I just don't see them doing that. I think they're going to take a quarterback. Whatever draft picks they take, I guess I just have to accept them regardless, right? Because it's a rebuild.
Or a year, but people got to be ready for another really frustrating year, and I would be tempted to think this was the time because you're not going to be great that rookie year with a quarterback. Let them, but if you have the quarterback that people think is the future, right? Well, I'll deal with the ups and downs.
What about a guy like Will Anderson, a guy that can play linebacker? They need a linebacker, and that.
What's the guy at the Cowboys right now is wreaking havoc? I mean, you get a guy like back. I'm going to order a Torquay United Groovy Donut hubcap or something like that at groovydonuts.com. We'll be right back with many more of your Twitter questions. Couch in the Rue, presented by Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app, and our friends at the great Skymint Premium Cannabis.
Ever wondered just how comfortable you can be? Find out with Muskox high quality. Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts. Guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Michigan. Hopcat is proud to be an official sponsor of Peyton Thorne, of all the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Information throughout Michigan and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Skymint Cannabis. You'll love this place. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthday.
Couch in the Rue, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, inspiring us all to feel better, look better, do better, and all that jazz. And by the way, they've got some great deals going on through November 7th. Free weed, as they're saying, and buy 2, get 1 free on select Skymint brand items. Some fantastic stuff. Go to any Sky.
To the second half.
Yeah, they didn't play with much. I mean, I think they underestimated their opponent. They thought they could walk on the floor and win a game. Izzo said that he sort of didn't do a full scout with them. Instead, gave the players the scouting report and
don't coach my team
that to see how they do on their own. And he goes, "Well, that was a mistake. They didn't really." He wanted to see.
Am I crazy for thinking MSU can go to Illinois and post an upset, much like the 11-2 MSU team did against Purdue last year?
Yeah, the thing about last year against Purdue is Michigan. First of all, that was a road game, and Purdue was home. Michigan State's going to be on the road, and that Michigan State defense was depleted.
Coach and current basketball coach and their own football scandals. More perspective is warranted. Power 5 sports are shady business.
There's no question there's easy whataboutism here. And I hate whataboutism because you hear it in politics all the time, and you're like, well, what about this? That doesn't make your shit clean. That doesn't make your shit better, right? Like, it drives me nuts. So that's why I've tried to stay away from the whataboutism. But there's no – well, in certain ways I do. I don't know. I mean, there are things I –
But, I mean, smacking a coach, I mean, that is pretty wild.
No doubt.
A scuffle, sorry, not a little one, a giant scuffle in a tunnel versus a coach slapping another coach
in
on
the handshake
court.
line, too, which is another place that's supposed to be a little sacred. You're supposed to be,
We got past that. We understand that, and,
people will get past this, too. It just.
Jawan didn't apologize the night of, but.
Great.
And then put it up somewhere.
Have to figure something else out.
Why? What else am I supposed to do with it?
It's my plan.
I understand. Just a couple dicks. Be fun. So Division III football, glorified high school football.
It's no, because it's well, here's the thing. It's often really good high school players who wanted to keep who plays high school football, who really wants to be part of it. And a lot of schools, by the way, build their school budget off this stuff. Like, it was Adrian or Aquinas in Michigan. These places have like rescued their finances by going all in on sports, because it's the opposite model of Division I. Division I, you're paying out with scholarships. In Division III, kids are paying point. He was yelling 8. Like, he had 8 different linebacker units. That's how many guys he had. And he was like, I don't have enough uniforms. He went to the school president, and the school president said, tell me what you need. I'll cut you a check. And he was like, why is that? And he goes, let me show you what tuition costs. Each one of these kids is paying like $20,000 a semester to go to school here. If it's going to cost $1,000 a uniform, no big whoop. So 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing.
Andrew Gauthier next. Is it possible that people on either side of this rivalry can be a little less dramatic and full of their own propaganda bullshit? Some people feel this was a Harbaugh orchestrated false flag, and others want these MSU players in jail without a trial. Can we meet in the middle?
This is clearly something that needs to be held to account and punished, and is. At the same time, you can say, don't love the way this guy's handling it about Jim Harbaugh. Don't love that. And so you can do those two things without. And I think a lot of reasonable people do. You just don't see them on 280 characters at a time.
Next one from the GOAT. When do the networks cover?
And so I do think there is the more, and it'll be fascinating. I don't think it happens overnight, but I do think generationally, as more Americans are soccer fans, that 25 years from now, the football will look a little different on TV, because it's going to go, so it could happen in over a 20-year span.
And I think there's a couple fixes to a game, commercial-wise, to where you can make it tolerable. I understand you guys need to make money off this, but it's just like a 1 second on the clock, and then you have to go to another timeout, and then there's a kickoff, and then extra point. It's just a review. It's just,
and sometimes they already do that. Like, when they go to review, just do the thing where you split the screen. You do a commercial on one side, but we can. So I don't think they're going to win this game. And so it comes down to, can they win 3 in a row? Obviously, Rutgers, Indiana at home, winnable games. And then the question is, can you win at Penn State? And where will their heads be? And who will you have on the roster? And not just that, Michigan State, that's a much bigger import.
Last one from the GOAT. Based on the exhibition, do you get the impression Jackson Kohler can become the go-to guy on offense? Rough start, but love what a baby-faced assassin showed in the second half. If no one else already coined that nickname, I'll take credit.
The baby-faced assassin. Expect that to be on a Groovy Donut really soon from Andrew and Monica. You are like me, but you're actually really good. But
same ego.
Yeah, I mean, he thinks highly of himself, and I appreciate that. So
why not?
Yeah.
Kevin.
I didn't answer the question. Will he become the go-to guy on offense? No, not this year. And I don't know. The one thing that'll be fascinating about his career is
long snapper recruit that lost his shot due to a knee that turned inside out on a bad snap in week 7 of senior year. Number 1, immediately thinking, oh, fuck, now everyone knows my name. 2, pissed off having your teammates yell at you for screwing up, even though most of them can't throw a football overhand, let alone between their legs. 3, disappointment when the head coach or offense is going 3 and out.
Appreciate you, Kevin. That's good shit. The Mind of a Long Snapper. That's a good story. That's a good book. Like, at some point, I need to, and I feel bad for like, even in the the 5 factors and prediction, I didn't mention MSU's backup long snapper by name. I just mentioned it because it was like, I don't want to pick on this kid. Like, he's probably like,
low. Oof. I haven't played live poker in so long, and definitely would not be pot limit Omaha high-low, because there's money being tossed around everywhere. I've sat and watched either Omaha regular games or high-low, and it's just wild the money that gets tossed around there. So I like no limit, hold 'em, but that's just me. I mean, I would play.
You know, like, you had
2007?
A Venezuelan donkey would mail you the check, and you'd get it maybe, 40 months later.
Next one from Jack Hagala. Hey, I have one thing to say. Go Stros, damn it.
It's a hell of a series. I give them that. That's an interesting. Yeah,
If they can just win 2-1 tonight,
yeah.
I'd be cool with that. That was the fastest Manuel has ever responded to anything, right? Seems like a local journalist could figure this was already planned by them. And you're 100% wrong, Couch. Comp's article was 100% correct.
Yeah, I disagree with it, but
Don't come at Comp.
yeah, no, Comp's look. You know the best thing I respect about Comp? He has no idea how much that blew up on Twitter. That's the healthiest way to handle it. Look, Wardman. I mean, all this stuff has been. I just want to be careful to call anything opportunistic because this is a serious fucking thing too. You know, like and so
How serious? On a level of 9/11 to 0, how serious is
but 9/11 to 0, it's a 1. But what I mean is it's
well, they're acting as if it is 9/11.
I don't be everywhere you want in the Michigan media or whatnot, but I'm saying that's just some of the stuff that I've read.
Plus size softball dad and Curtis Cakeley. Does anyone have video of the beginning of the scuffle? Plenty of video and reports about what people after it had begun. Nothing about what actually started the event. Do you mean to tell me that there are no cameras in that stadium tunnel? And in
terms of the camera situation, it's really interesting because from what I know, and it's possible things have changed in the last hours or whatever, or there's some camera, but like the Michigan State people as of yesterday only had what we had seen, and that's what they based their judgment on. It's the ABC camera, it's the reporters' cameras, and the ABC camera that's up there. Get out of this. I think one of the reasons the Big Ten has not been vocal about this at all is they're fine with how MSU has sort of taken on the accountability and been humble about it and said these 8 guys were involved to some degree. They're suspended until we figure this out. I think Michigan State's response was helpful. I think it was helpful in.
How wild will it be when Graham learns Derby County is pronounced Darby?
Yeah, I fucked that up the other day on the show. I know it's Derby County. I watched a lot of championship soccer last year when they were
Cockburn.
when they were still in the championship. But no, I will.
Noted.
So there are a couple things. There are a lot of different ways to look at this. If you're thinking about that move, and I don't know that the coaches are, I don't know exactly where they see practice, and they may know there's a clear difference between Peyton Thorne and the other 2 quarterbacks. They may not. They may want to see the others in a game at some point. So you can look at it like giving a guy his first start at home at some point in terms of how far behind, like when the ranking of the quarterbacks, like where are those guys? And that's a good question for Jay Johnson too. And I don't think we have a clear question there. To me, to this point, Peyton Thorne has shown he's not really a difference maker. I don't think he is the problem with the team. I think in the right situation, he could be a guy who is a really effective quarterback and starting job together. And everybody, instead, Cook won it early. Terry and O'Connor never developed. That sort of, and so I think with Caton Hauser, they would like him and Noah Kim eventually to have that chance. The difference here, though, is that Peyton Thorne isn't a senior. Like, Peyton Thorne's got another year. It needs a true Lansing promise where every kid goes to school for college statewide for free, goes to Lansing Public Schools, which would change the city dramatically. It needs a downtown hotel across from the Capitol and restaurants around the square. You can't have parking ramps that face the office, and then and that's what hasn't happened. That's what's. I would have zero issue with what they were doing running the football, other than a few of the decisions on certain calls, short runs and all. Like, I think they should be throwing the ball on 4th and 1 much more often. They got better receivers than they do an offensive line. But what it hasn't translated to is their ability to protect but also to make plays on the receivers. If you're not getting anything out, going to come back, I think he's going to play basketball. But he didn't have the year this year. I don't know who's going to leave. I mean, that's a hard thing to predict. Who's unhappy and you could say one of the running backs that isn't playing. I guess the guy would be Elijah Collins. Does he technically have another year if he wanted it with COVID? I'd have to look and figure that out. But that would not stun me like Elijah. You're getting to the point that you're now at the point, other than a bowl game, that anybody who hasn't played, you got 4 games left. True freshmen can play, which helps with the suspensions, by the way. True freshmen can play, and they're not giving up a year of eligibility. And so I think it'll be very interesting. Now, Illinois may not be the first team to try a guy, but if a guy is close on the half, yeah, it's not. This is going to be a tough week to run the football, too, and it's supposed to be like 35-mile-an-hour winds at some point Saturday. It ain't going to be great.
Next one, Eric Larson. If you and Jason were independently wealthy, and let's say we're $30 million each, do you think you could buy a sports team together, like in Welcome to Wrexham?
Against something to try and do it, but
we'll jump in with other people and
Right.
have a little piece. I think like a minor league baseball team.
well, $30 million each though, so we're $60 million total. I mean, that's a decent chunk, right?
I'm not doing soccer.
You know, you'd be.
I mean, unless you told me like, listen, this is a moneymaker for sure, just like my parlays.
I mean, soccer.
I would be
is,
like, all right, I'll sprinkle, but don't expect me.
that would be the argument. So that would be my.
I'm out.
I would.
I'm like Mark Cuban on Shark Tank.
Torquay United.
You
I'd
make
say
some
we
great
go get
points,
it.
Graham, but with that being said, I'm out.
That would be my play.
Dino Spumoni next. Graham, what are the Big Ten comparison to the Premier League teams? Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City. Also, are the Lions the worst friends? Without telling anyone. Yeah, they have to be.
The Lions do? You mean?
The Lions are the worst franchise out there, I think, right now. But you could vote for Cleveland.
Nobody in the NBA is worse, right?
No. How?
Yeah, I'm trying to go through. I mean,
The Sacramento Kings, maybe?
yeah.
Even
Something
then,
like-
no.
Yeah.
You don't compete with the Lions.
Historic power that's sort of down a little bit. I don't know where that is, if that's Wisconsin or MSU or somebody that, like, you know, still yeah, it's a good question. It's a great question, but that's where I would go with it.
PHBA next. A couple of weeks ago, many MSU fans would have been content with a 29-7. Hazleton can get these guys to fight, but I don't know about Jay Johnson, man. I mean, that Michigan game was an indictment on him. So,
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, do you bring Hazleton back? You just forget everything else that happened throughout the season?
And I think the thing that we don't have a great feel for, and I should have a better feel for, frankly, and don't, is it is interesting, the 29-7 loss to Michigan, that at some point MSU fans would have been content. I don't know to what degree content. I think after the Minnesota game, after the Ohio State game, that Michigan State fans might have signed up for that. After the Wisconsin game, I don't know if they would have signed up for quite that.
Andrew Zuiza. Hey, Graham, you announced the Hopcat hot take of the day, usually with
one that's really good. And sometimes what happens is I'll read it and it'll be pretty good. But then within the flow of the show, the way it hits, the way Jason reads it, the conversation that's going on, it winds up being better than I
whether or not they
anticipated.
kiss your ass in it. Or?
Yeah, sometimes I don't see that coming quite. But it's a fair question.
Next one from Andrew. How does Harbaugh get away?
But the evidence we have is you ought to be able to skip ahead in a line. And is that smart? No. But it shouldn't quite be fuck around and find out either. You know what I mean? Like, you skipped ahead in a line. You know, it shouldn't be you've gone into the lion's den completely here.
That I know.
Yeah, I mean, you should call though. In this situation, you should call. You're an adult. You're the head of a team. You had an incident. You should both be on the phone with each other. You don't have to like each other. You should call at some point, right? It's the proper thing to do. You call.
If Harbaugh didn't overreact and that's the Hopcat hot take of the day.
Yeah, I think there are a number of people in Detroit media, and so the thing that also makes this tricky is there are a lot of people who are not they're media in the sense that they're in the press box, but they work for, like, Sam Webb is like, I mean, they're sort of mouthpieces of the university to some degree. They're not going to be critical of Michigan, the way he's been eager about criminal charges. But again,
Free Ubers.
yeah, I think you have to try to separate where have you seen that from, and is it coming from Wojo in Detroit? Is it coming from the Detroit News and Free Press, or is it coming from Wolverine Blog X or Washington Presser, where I thought he was a little rattled? To be honest, I didn't think he knew. I don't think he's been through this a lot as a head coach. And I did think he was a little rattled. He didn't say anything dumb, which is the real thing you're trying to get out of there without doing. But I am.
But how are you not rattled?
Yeah, no, that's
you're
fine.
Going to the tunnel, you just lost the game, and all of a sudden your players.
No, but I'm talking about the Monday press. Like, I know firsthand that people on that staff were excited to see what Jay Johnson was going to do this year with the tight ends. And it leads me to believe a couple things. One, I don't think Malik Carr's had the greatest year and things so, but I know also that he hasn't been used enough, and he's been healthy enough, long enough.
Ugh.
It's just a whole different deal. Now, I mean, because he's such a dominant player.
I don't know if he can help.
Oh, he could help. I mean,
I know he could help, but you know what I mean? I mean, like, win games by himself.
They wouldn't be as good as last year because the offensive line's not as good.
Right.
But so you could say, well, he wouldn't be the difference between 34-7 against Minnesota. No, but that whole game is different, right? If you have a player of that, those are questions that'll be asked. But to this point, they're not out there. And for what I know, the schools, it's not like the schools have extra tapes, or Michigan State doesn't at least. They don't have more than what we've seen.
Clint, one ball. Was last week our high water mark, or does the flood of bullshit subside going forward? MSU over the short term.
You got to make sure this doesn't look like a culture thing. And this is why I think this is a really important month for MSU, a program month. And that's what I kind of wrote. It's how you perform. It's how you compete. It's not necessarily, how many games you win. You don't want to go 0 for 4. You don't want to lose to Rutgers at home. But you need to look like a team that gives a shit, that's in it.
Last one from Clint. At what point do we judge people on their character over their race or gender?
Well, I think that should be all the time.
I don't know, 5 years from now.
I'd say
don't we?
2031.
All right. Rompus Dillashaw with Windman out and Van Sumeren seemingly questionable. Can our 4-star linebacker Giotote?
I know when you're in the tunnel, you're not expecting to get hit. The helmets are off. But, like, I'm always amazed on the field when there's a football fight and some jackass takes his helmet off. Like, the thing that's protecting you, leave that on. And
I would never take my helmet off until I got to the locker.
Even then, I'd be nervous about my own teammates.
Wear it home then, all right.
Yeah, just wear it in the car, drive with it, something like that. It'll be interesting to see how they fill out the, what do they
16, 18, and 19. Score wasn't close. Then this year, and when MSU wins, it's memorable. The punt in 15, Typhoon in 17, 24-point underdog.
20.
Jesus, fuck. 16-point comeback in 21.
Yeah, I mean, some of that's because I think Michigan's had the team that was perceived as better, and then fair point.
Next one from Jay. Chances MSU flips Dante Moore. I hear they are going all in on him.
Yeah, he's at Oregon now. I mean, here's the thing is, and I know they just had the decommitment from Bo, a 3-star kid, but I never thought that Edmondson was a guy that they were all that keen on. Like, Caton Hauser was sort of the guy in the next class. You're looking for a guy.
D. Wade or Bosch, and which one would have fit that team the best?
Who's your pick between those three?
I got to say Bosch.
Yeah?
For that 04 team. I just think D. Wade, obviously not Mello, because Mello wanted to be the guy, and that wouldn't have fit those guys. I think D. Wade second, but Bosch would be my number one guy, I think.
So the counter to Mello.
And lastly, Burn to the Ground.
So we have wine glasses with like maps of each of these. These are the 4 cities in our wine glass collection of these like city maps.
That should have been just between you and the wife.
Lansing, Marquette, Kalamazoo, Chicago.
Although it's not surprising.
Yeah, not surprising at all. All right, so live in Lansing, right? Live and work in Lansing.
Play with depleted defense to bring Scotty back next year.
I don't think Mel will need any, like, he's the head. I think he's pretty confident in what he wants to do. If he wants to bring Scotty Hazelton back, he'll just do it. I don't think he'll need to explain that to anybody. People may not love it. But what's ultimately going to matter, how people are feeling about Mel Tucker after this year, is December 21st on signing day. If he
feel it's necessary to insert their own smarmy zip whenever they tweet about MSU. And from Sparty99, what's with the negative tone from Charbs and Solari on the Bo Edmondson decommit? There's very good public information that MSU persuaded Bo to decommit, and MSU wants to pursue better quarterback options.
Another tweet, another recruit decommits or something like that, and it sounded kind of negative. And I don't know what he knew in terms of the reasons that Bo Edmondson decided to leave, and I've seen the reports that was a mutual thing. I did not know that going in. And so And again, that's coming also from, and maybe, but they don't hate MSU. They're good dudes, good reporters, and but I understand why that particular tweet was frustrating.
Tyler next. My can't lose parlay plus 290. TSU over Texas Tech. Clemson over Notre Dame. Eagles minus 6.5 over the Texans. Bills minus 6.5 over the Jets.
Okay, so that would have paid. And I do have them in a teaser somewhere else.
Wasn't the regular line on that 12.5?
Yeah, it was right around there. Yeah, hit right perfectly. And a weird
Vegas knows nothing.
Yeah, weird. Yeah. Can't miss parlay. I don't have a great one this week, but I'm all on Crystal Palace, which pays like a parlay, and instead because it's plus 310 on the month.
Expands across the country. Will there be a requirement for college coaches to release suspension, injury reports of players by certain deadlines? Would this force a coach to prematurely discipline a player?
I do think we're going to get to the point where injury reports exist in college sports. I don't know when. I'm not saying it's right around the corner. I do think that sort of thing will, and then they do. You have to kind of.
So what TV person do you hate? Because that's got to be if it's not Hondo, I know you always complain about the.
There isn't somebody right now. There have been. I'm trying to think of somebody who was just sort of. I don't like people grandstand. There have been, like one of the things that pissed me off to this day, and I wish I had reacted to it differently, was Tish's shit, and then she asked the question incorrectly because she starts saying, she asked about a former assistant coach. And Izzo's confused because even though Walton was briefly on his staff, he thinks of Walton as a player. So I can see the wheels turning. He's confused. He doesn't really know what's going on.
Don't coach my team.
And I wish in that moment that I had taken the other mic and asked her a question. Because
media, Twitter, is this not the best Skymint week?
It's a really good one. Next Tuesday night might be a great time to load up with Skymint, which has some fantastic deals going on right now. Go to skymint.com to check those out.
Couch on fire, 4 games to go. Which players might we see now that we're past burning red shirts?
I don't have a good feel for this, but I'm as curious as you are. Better and teams are ahead of you, but deal with it. I think intent and scheduling really matters, and so I'm 100% cool with it. And to the previous question about what players might be redshirting, one of the problems of the week like this is when one story sort of engulfs the week, those questions don't get asked. Like, I don't know if anybody... Maybe I can't remember because I've been curious about it, but I don't think I did this week. And
I'm not fucking saying that word. Mr. Couch says we can finally start judging him.
Yeah, he makes it to there.
Pansophical.
Because the school wants him to. The school's all in. Unless something goes really wrong and he wants to leave. I first of all, contractually he's locked in and all that jazz. But yeah, he makes it to 2025 because. It's one.
And apparently he was offended by what I said and thought Graham said it, and then Graham panicked and then wanted to make sure they knew it was me.
So he's a newspaper guy in Dallas. Actually, he has 2 accounts. So his actual Twitter account, he's like a legitimate editor in the Dallas Morning News.
I don't have any issue with a guy.
He's got this other account where he blogs Michigan stuff, but basically trolls and doesn't. You can, there is nobody in this world that is allowed to quote tweet me that way.
Instead of the, right? Call.
That's what he should have clipped. Been funnier. Dark Mantonio. Can you? Oh no, we read that one. Tyrone Couch. Michigan fans were begging for Windman to be suspended. Would be a shame if he.
How this plays out for him because I think he's one of the guys who his exact involvement is a little fuzzy.
Next one from Tyrone Couch. My shopping cart top 10. 10, Walmart, complete ass. 5, Meijer, meh. And 1, Target, so smooth. The cart quality matches the store quality. If the MSU coaches were shopping...
NFL guys who just say they don't hit anymore, and it's actually...
Well, you can't.
Right, that's what I mean. But it leads to more injuries, actually, because those bodies haven't been hardened and things like that. And it also... it doesn't help you. Yeah, no, I'm not... but I think that's not just MSU. I think that's everywhere. There's less contact in preparing, and I don't know that helps some of the technique stuff.
Next one from Cucker. Well, you can't choose. You're going to be in the kennel.
Yeah, that's not good. Then I'll be something else.
That's what I'm saying. If you're a wolf, you're on your own, and you're just eating shit. And be great. Cucker. In music streaming, royalties are paid out after 30 seconds of listening, so just curious, if it exists, what is that in the podcasting world?
I don't know exactly. We get paid per downloads a year less, but still tune into the games. That's always my advice to people. it's a good time to to go to a place like Hopcat, to go to a place like Front 43, to go to Midtown Brewing Company, take in something else with the football too.
Mr. Benjen, doesn't Steven Tyler do caw at the end of was dropped from the name?
Well, they don't. I mean, they basically call it the Premier League now too. They don't say English Premier League the same way they used to. I think American fans would, or how about the English soccer fans? They would not be happy. They would not love that. And but the problem is, I don't know if a U.S. owner would want to go do that with the danger they could be relegated, because they'd have to accept they're not coming back over here.
And fumbling their phone in the midst of a fight or flight-induced panic. Please factor in that the said event was existing video footage captured by another reporter that kept his composure, that completely debunks the self-aggrandized retelling.
This is a shot at Solari, and I'm not going to take a shot at Solari here. He's a friend of
counts. All right, let's get to the Hawk. Jake, whether or not you want to count this season as Tucker's third year technically, would you say that there are similarities to D'Antonio's third season?
I wasn't covering the team then, but it was the year when it was a struggle. And so, but I don't know exactly what the reasons were. I do remember Michigan State played like a bottom of the barrel MAC team, dude. Like I don't know, that'll always stand out from that performance. But I don't know exactly how similar they are, to be honest with you.
Next one from the Hawk. What toxic stuff has been said about Mel Tucker on social media? Valeni and Rico Beard said on their show yesterday that they've seen some pretty bad stuff being said, and they needed to remind MSU fans. I saw a picture of him having security.
Yeah, but I don't know to what extent the threats have been, but or if it's just being cautious, which is fine too. But if there've been really serious death threats or anything like that, then okay, we got a real fucking problem here. That needs to. People need to pipe down on that stuff, and so yeah, I mean, there's been some nasty stuff out there.
Next one from Vision Trading. I'm sorry,
and he hasn't. And I think they got a decent amount for him. I don't care about the interdivision stuff because the Lions are still building.
But what do you mean? So in 3 years, you think Hawkinson's going to be gone?
No,
I think
he's not.
Minnesota will want him to stay, and he's going to be scoring 2 touchdowns per game against them.
Is he? I don't know if he's going to be that good. I don't know.
In that offense?
Okay.
Why not? He's
who's
not complete ass.
Who's throwing him the ball? So
couchintheroop.myspace.com.
We'll do something. I'm not that worried about it. If he fucks it up, he fucks it up. There's part of me that would be happy. Other parts of me that would have to get over that and figure out a new way to exist. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think I would be relieved, though, if I woke up tomorrow and Twitter was dead or something.
I would be, too. I would adjust.
I do enjoy it. But,
I would be a healthy. Great weekend for SkyMint coming up.